Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the Trigger Titan AI Dashboard V1, specifically the V111 active version, and we are looking at how it handles XAUUSD on a 15-minute time frame. If you trade gold, you already know how wild that 15-minute chart can get. It's fast, it's notoriously volatile, and honestly, it can make your head spin. So, how do we cut through all that noise? Well, we use structured algorithmic overlays, exactly like the one we're about to decode right now. 1, 2, 3. That's our magic number today. That is the total number of trades currently logged in this system's core dashboard. And you know as well as I do, when we're evaluating any analytical tool, sample size is literally everything. 123 trades is a seriously robust sample size driving this analytical machine. It tells us we're not just looking at a lucky afternoon in the markets, right? There is a sustained, calculated history here that gives all the data we're about to see some real weight.
Act 1. The Control Panel. Decoding Core System Metrics. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's look at the actual data. Before you even think about looking at a single candlestick, you've got to check these core metrics to gauge the immediate market environment. So we've got our 123 total trades anchoring the data. Next up, the system is explicitly calling the current trend bullish. Love to see that. Then check out the RSI. It's sitting right at 59.96. That's an incredibly helpful reading because an RSI near 60 means we've got solid positive momentum, but we aren't quite overbought yet. And finally, we have a hyper-precise volatility reading of 0.167%. When you're scalping, volatility is your fuel, and knowing exactly how much gas is in the tank dictates your entire risk profile.
Now, what's genuinely cool about this setup is how seamlessly it integrates all that data. Notice how the dashboard just hovers quietly up there in the top right? It's mapping real-time market data directly onto your chart, constantly updating those critical baseline metrics, including that highly specific 0.167% volatility reading we just talked about. The brilliance here is that you don't have to break focus. You don't have to look away to a separate screen to figure out the macro environment. The whole shebang is right there, floating perfectly above the price action.
Moving on to Act 2, the Flight Path. Tracking Dynamic Trend Lines.
So how does the system actually visualize market momentum? It uses these dynamic stepped lines. And to be clear, these are not your standard smooth moving averages. These stepped lines act as your primary visual filter for establishing the overall trend direction. Basically, they create this distinct visual floor or ceiling that the price interacts with. It takes a super abstract concept like momentum and makes it incredibly concrete and visually striking.
Comparing these two setups side by side really hits the nail on the head. You can instantly see how these dynamic trend lines react to major market shifts. Over on the left, we've got this harsh, stepped red line just crushing the price downward during a clear bearish phase. But look at the right, total 180. The environment completely flips. We see this massive green bullish climb, with that thick green line acting as an absolute bedrock for the price action. There's zero ambiguity here. The color-coded steps tell you exactly who is running the show on the 15-minute time frame.
All right, Act 3, Action Stations. Executing long and short positions.
Here is where the indicator completely removes the guesswork. It literally labels your exact entry points. You get these really distinct long signals packed into bright green boxes with an upward arrow, and then your short signals are in these bold red boxes with a downward arrow. These aren't static either. They dynamically react the second price action crosses the parameters set by those dashboard metrics and trend lines we just looked at. It's a real game changer for quick decisions. So how do all these visual cues actually come together into a usable system? Well, your typical scalping workflow boils down to 3 precise steps. Step 1. Confirm the macro trend by glancing at your dashboard, so spotting that bullish status. Step 2. Wait for your visual entry signal on the chart, like one of those green long boxes. And Step 3. Immediately identify your take profit target so you know exactly where your exit is. It takes a totally chaotic gold chart and turns it into a calm, step-by-step checklist.
Which brings us to our final phase, Act 4, Securing Take Profit Targets. Take a really close look here. Right after those long and short entry signals fire off, you'll see these small green dotted lines labeled TP1. Now, these aren't just random resistance levels drawn out of thin air. These are the indicator's precisely calculated take profit zones, custom built for short-term XAUUSD scalping. They essentially give you a hard, objective line in the sand. It tells you exactly where to take your money off the table before gold's crazy volatility can whip around and reverse on you.
And here is how that plays out in a real scenario. Right after the green long signal triggers, the price pushes up and literally just tags that dotted TP1 line. It's a perfect example of how these targets strategically sit right within the reach of the current price action swing. It visually guides you to lock in those gains objectively, which, let's be honest, is the best way to protect yourself from your own worst enemy, human greed and emotion.
So we've seen how the Tiga Titan AI dashboard takes all this complex data, 123 trades, trend direction, RSI, volatility, and synthesizes it into exact color-coded intro and exit tags right on a 15-minute gold chart. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to ponder. When you're navigating a market as notoriously chaotic as gold, does algorithmic organization provide the ultimate analytical edge? Or, at the end of the day, are we really just trying to put a leash on a wild animal? Thanks for tuning into this explainer. And as always, keep questioning the data.